We interrupt this program to bring you the Meet the Candidates General Election 2024 Forum, presented by the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce.
Your seats. Over here, to my right, please. Oh, it is. Okay, it is. Hello? Hello? Yeah. Good morning. All right, well, so we're just waiting on those candidates. Well, I'd like to go ahead and welcome everyone to the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce Meet the Candidates. My name is Heather Ouimet, and I am the chairperson for the Governmental Affairs Committee. And today I want to welcome you all and say that I would like to thank our sponsors, as this event could not happen without them, and that's the Cabins at Pine Haven, Appalachian Power Company, Access Health West Virginia, Beckley ARH Hospital, Cucumber and Company, Jan Care Ambulance and General EMS, Raleigh County Republican Executive Committee, Sears Monument Company, and Truist. I also would like to remind you that early voting begins in Raleigh County October 23rd and ends on November 2nd, and the general election is November 5th. I'd also like to remind you that any candidates or any campaigns that have any signs outside of the Raleigh County the Convention Center, if you could please remove them upon departure at the end of the event. Now at this time I'd like to introduce our longtime moderator, who is incredible, Mr. Jay Quesenberry, our Raleigh County Administrator.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. It's great to be with you all this morning, and thank you for your turnout. It shows that you're interested in the political process. And we've done this many times. Keith and I were talking. We've done this multiple times. It's just so great to be in this election cycle and have a chance to learn from these candidates. In today's format, we'll call the candidates from each office to the podium to answer questions from our distinguished media panel here. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer. All candidates will be allowed a 1-minute closing statement as well. Judge candidates will not be asked any questions, but will be given an opportunity to make a 90-second statement. So we want to introduce our folks that are making this happen today. We'll see if we can get this turned up just a little bit, right? First off, our Sergeant at Arms. They've done this for many, many years. We have Nancy Kissinger and Roy Shrewsbury. Give them a round of applause. They're Sergeant at Arms, and they basically make sure the candidates get up on the stage and they watch the flow and really help in many, many ways. Also, our timekeeper has done this for many, many years, the cowbell, Pete Tirico. And we also have a very distinguished media panel with us here this morning. From the Loot Press, right here, Cameron Gano. From WJLS, Keith Thompson. Right next to Keith, Micah Leah from WOAY ABC4. Next to Micah is Rivers Upchurch from 59 News. Ben Schwartz from WVVA right here. And right on the end there, Lola Reiser with Southern Communications and WWNR. Let's give them a round of applause. We certainly appreciate them. So we want to begin with our national ticket and call our U.S. Senate candidates to the podium. Governor Justice could not attend today, but we do have our Democratic candidate, Mr. Glenn Elliott, with us. Mr. Elliott will be given 4 questions and allowed a 1-minute answer. Plus, he'll also have a 1-minute closing statement. We begin the questions for Mr. Elliott. Welcome, by the way. Welcome. We begin the questioning with Cameron Gano from the Loot Press.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What are some of the ways economically in which you feel the state could be improved?
Oh, 1 minute for that one's a tough one.
How much time we got?
Look, we have to keep doing the big type of economic development, going out there trying to find big companies, big businesses to come here. But at a certain level, we need to reinvest in our communities. So many communities are lacking in infrastructure. They've lost their vibrancy, and they cease being places where young people want to stay. And we're the only state really over the last 15 years to export people. We've lost net population since 2010. So I would like, as being mayor of Wheeling for the last 8 years, I focus first and foremost on rebuilding neighborhoods, rebuilding our downtown, making it a place where people want to come, making it a destination. And I think, there's a lot of cities across the state where if we focus on revitalization at the local level, the young folks are going to stay there. And then the employers these days are increasingly picking where they want to go based on where the workforce is. I've lost track of the number of employers I've talked to across the state who can't find people to fill the jobs that they already have. So for me, the chicken and the egg thing is we have to focus on the chicken being the people, given a reason to stay in the communities in the first place. So really helping cities grow at the local level, which I think, quite frankly, has been lacking a little bit from our legislature. They sometimes see cities, not as an ally or partner in actually building our population. We have to work with our cities.
Thank you.
Our next question for Mr. Elliott from Keith Thompson, WJLS.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine.
Two-point question. Why did you decide to run?
Yeah.
And what is the most important thing that you will try to bring to the Senate for West Virginia?
Thanks for the question. I began my career after college working for Senator Robert Byrd for 5 years in his Washington office. I saw first and foremost the way this particular Senate seat that I'm now seeking can be used to benefit the state. In fact, I now drive across the state on roads and bridges, and I see buildings that he helped bring to the state by working hard, by showing up every day, by building relationships in the Senate. I did not plan to run for this seat, though, until Senator Manchin decided to step aside. I recognized, with a D next to my name, it's an uphill battle, but I really think this is a seat worth fighting for. We need someone who's going to show up each and every day, and I thought I had the best skill set given the 5 years working for the senator in D.C. and then 8 years working as mayor of Wheeling, working with both Senators Manchin and Senator Capito to bring resources back to Wheeling. I can see it from both sides of the equation, and I know what cities across the state need. In terms of my number one priority, we have to get Congress back to doing budgeting the way it was intended to be done. They have to stop with these omnibus bills that they throw everything in the kitchen sink in these legislation. They print it out one night at midnight, and then everyone's voting on it the next morning. It's not responsible governance for the world's greatest republic to be doing its annual budgeting that way. When I worked for Senator Byrd, they did the annual budget resolution, the 13 appropriations bills. Like there was an order and process. We have to get back to that.
Our next question is from Micah Leath from WOAY-TV. Micah?
Mr. Elliott, as you know, I'm sure you know, you're running as a Democrat in a now majority Republican state. I want to ask about after the election and working across the aisle, not only in the Senate, but also here at home where most of the local officials you're going to interact with are Republicans.
Yeah.
How can you get things done in that climate?
My friend Steve Williams likes to say, if you want to see what someone will do, look at what they have done. I've been mayor of Wheeling for the last 8 years. I just left office this July. Wheeling's a pretty conservative city. We had 3 members of my city council who were pretty far-right conservatives. We had a couple to my left. We had a lot of votes that were 7-0 votes, though, because we sat down, we talked to each other as human beings. We didn't talk past each other, and we're able to get a lot done in Wheeling. Wheeling has seen about $500 million of economic public and private investment during the time I was there, working with the city council of very disparate views. I learned from Byrd. When I worked for Byrd, his 2 best friends in the Senate were Senator Ted Stevens on the far right and Senator Ted Kennedy on the far left. Certainly, he didn't pick his friends based on their ideology. He picked his friends based on people that he respected and thought were good legislators. We have to learn how to talk to each other as Republicans and Democrats and independents again and stop seeing each other as the enemy. I ran my entire time in office as mayor of Wheeling that way, and I would certainly, if elected to the Senate, make an effort to reach across the aisle and wouldn't want to get in my own bubble just to one party.
And our next question, final question from Rivers Upchurch of 59 News.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you believe that the federal government should intervene and try to make buying a home more accessible for first-time home buyers? And if so, how do you propose doing that?
I've looked at the proposals out there. Housing is a crisis across the country. It's definitely a crisis in West Virginia. We have a I've been to all 55 counties during this campaign and looked at a lot of the issues. We have a lot of communities that have a lot of fixer-upper housing, but not a lot of turnkey housing. We got to figure out ways to incentivize, more housing, especially for young folks who don't necessarily want the fixer-upper opportunities. We have a lot of existing tax credits out there already to stimulate home investment, but for some folks are just finding it hard to make that first investment out front. So you have to look at ways to incentivize housing construction. But I'd like to look at a more diverse set of housing than just the traditional model. We have a lot of vacant lots and vacant buildings in a lot of our downtowns across the state. We need to get some more housing, in our existing areas. The problem with a lot of our housing investments is we try to build new developments where you need new infrastructure, new water, sewer, electric, everything, and streets run to it. I'd like to see us take advantage of a lot of our vacant lots around our city centers and actually see some more types of housing that young folks want. We have to stop exporting young people, and housing is a big piece of the equation. And if we don't do a better job of it, folks are going to keep leaving our state for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. A 1-minute closing statement.
All right, thank you. That went really quick. Look, my name is Glenn Elliott. I very much want to be your next United States Senator, and I recognize that because there's a D next to my name, a lot of you are inclined not to vote for me. But let me just say this. My record as mayor of Wheeling is one of bipartisan compromise. My role model in the Senate, Robert Byrd, was certainly not someone who only worked with Democrats. I'm someone who can work with anybody. If you elect me to the Senate, there may be a couple days where I vote in ways you don't like, but it's the other 360 days or so where I'm going to show up. There's a reason that I'm here today, and my opponent is not taking the time to be here, not taking the time to debate or campaign in any normal way, because he hasn't shown up that much in Charleston as governor. I don't think he will show up in D.C. as a senator. I will. I have a role model for how to do the job, and if given the opportunity to represent you in D.C., you may not agree with everything I do, but I will never embarrass you. I'll never disappoint you, and nobody will work harder for West Virginia. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn Elliott, running for U.S. Senate in the state of West Virginia. We want to remind our radio audience this is Meet the Candidates with the Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. We do this prior to each election, not only the primary but also the general election. And up next we have the U.S. House of Representative candidates. And Carol Miller could not attend. She is in Taiwan, and also the Democratic candidate Chris Bob Reed could not attend. But we have with us Mr. Wes Holden, who's an independent running for the U.S. House of Representatives. And we want to say welcome to you, Mr. Holden. And we want to begin our questioning with Ben Schwartz of WVVA.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ben.
FEMA has been warning that it does not have enough funding to make it through the rest of hurricane season. Do you believe, should Congress be back in session right now addressing that need?
Yes, I do. I work for Senator Rockefeller. Let's fix this a little bit. I worked for Senator Rockefeller for 38 years. When we had the floods, devastating floods in West Virginia, FEMA was there. I worked with FEMA. I worked with SBA. I worked with county commissions to take care of the needs of the people. I could tell you stories of all day long of working, trying to provide assistance. And I'm so disappointed at this Congress. Even the current Congresswoman, she's over in Taiwan or in the Middle East somewhere. She should be staying here doing her job to take care of FEMA. The problem is we see this large Category 5 hurricane just sitting off the coast. Florida's already inundated. We see what has happened in North Carolina and Asheville. Just imagine if that would happen here. Where would our Congress be? Where would we be looking for help? Congress deserves to do their job, and that's one reason why I'm running. I'm running for office to represent the people of West Virginia, and we have to have representation. Just because you're in Congress don't mean you can take a vacation whenever you want. You're there to represent the people. We have a tragedy coming, and you need to be there to fix it. Thank you.
Our next question is from Lola Reiser of WWNR. Lola?
Good morning, sir, and welcome. We see a lot of appropriation funds coming to West Virginia for broadband infrastructure. But I will say that there is a perception that a lot of that is not making it to southern West Virginia. Could you please expound on that?
Well, I agree with you 100%. When I've been campaigning in rural counties, I ask what's their number one problem. They tell me it's the need for broadband. And my opponent voted against the $1.2 billion broadband funding bill that would allow high-speed internet for West Virginians statewide. And we know, as a matter of fact, for West Virginia to succeed, we must have broadband, high-speed internet for our school children and for our businesses to thrive. Many times you talk to locals that are wanting small businesses to come there, they have no broadband. Just think of what happened during the COVID crisis. School kids couldn't do their homework. They'd have to their parents would have to drive them somewhere, drive them to a McDonald's where they have broadband just so they could do their homework. I say that is a shame. Every area must have broadband. And what I would like to do, we have the BEAD agency in Charleston that's just starting up, and they're working with local chambers of commerce, county commissions. But what I would like to do, instead of the dog wagging the tail, I would like to start with broadband in the rural areas and work our ways to the metropolitan areas. That's what we got to do. And we have to do just like Franklin Delano Roosevelt did with the rural electrification program. And that's how rural areas got electric. That's how rural areas got the telephone system. So we have to do that. Thank you.
Our next question for Mr. Holden is from Cameron Gano of the Loop Press.
As an independent candidate, what would you say you would bring to this position that the opposition might not in that regard as far as party lines?
That's very simple. The reason that I'm running, I'm tired of the dysfunction in Congress. There's been many Republican congressmen who have decided not to run or given up their jobs because they felt they could not do what they were elected to do. So they dropped out. They were tired of it. As an independent, I'll be a little different. I do not have to rely on partisan party politics to get things done. One of my main goals is I want to go after all this federal funding that's sitting out there in the form of grants. I would like to, if elected, I would like to start a pilot program to hire grant writers for some of these rural counties. Some of these rural counties, such as Wyoming County, part of your listening area, does not even have a single grant writer. Grant writing is a specialty. So if we could get a special pilot project, get grant writers, they could work on the needs of those particular counties, and I would be there to help bring that funding for them. That's what we have to have, an economic shot in the arm. I want to, Hive is doing what they can, the Chamber of Commerce is doing what they can, anyway.
And Keith Thompson from WJLS has the final question for Mr. Holden.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Keith.
As an independent, and there are a lot of disgruntled Democrats, a lot of disgruntled Republicans that have became independents over the last 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And this question has not come up yet this morning, but job-wise in West Virginia, what would you do to bring up better the infrastructure and the jobs in the state?
Well, as I mentioned, I worked for Senator Rockefeller, 8 years while he was governor, 30 years as senator. And one of the things that he did that I would like to imitate, he started the J-train process. And I'm sure not too many people will remember that, but he would get businesses or business representatives, put them on a bus, work with the West Virginia Development Office, bring them to rural areas, bring them to and they'd work with the local county commissions, Chamber of Commerce, to look for sites where these companies could come to. I want to copy many of the policies of Senator Rockefeller to bring businesses. I'll tell you what, when I was working for Senator Rockefeller, and a lot of times I took the initiative and did things on my own. I almost got a passport processing facility here in Beckley. Unfortunately, I called the Secretary of State's office and said, I bet you guys, it was 2006 when they decided to change how they did passport processing. And I said, I bet you're looking for a new passport office. They said, yes. I got in touch with the development office, sent them some information. 2 months later, I hadn't heard. I called and I said, what's going on. They said, we made a decision. My heart was racing, and you know what happened? They went to Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock's no better than we are. We could have had that processing here. So what I'm saying is we have to be bold and look for ways to be innovative to bring business here, and that's what I will do.
Mr. Holden, 1 minute closing statement.
Okay. What the problems with West Virginia and the problems with the southern coal fields comes down to this. We need to improve education. We need to build a sustainable future for our children, and our future development depends on it. That's why I'm running for Congress. West Virginia cannot be reformed unless we stand up for ourselves. And that's why I'm running for the middle class and for the people of West Virginia. I'm not satisfied with one particular community having a good school. I want to make sure every child in West Virginia has adequate opportunity for a good education. We need a program of retraining for our unemployed workers. Workers are laid off, and when tasks become mechanized, technology changes, industries either move away or close down, men and women are left unemployed. And I want to make sure our citizens can take advantage of the new jobs that inevitably comes as technology changes. Small business are hit particularly hard by regulatory compliance. Regulations cost small businesses. They must pay 82% of all federal regulation costs, and compliance burden can be much heavier at a local level. The federal government can do much more to help entrepreneurs start and grow local businesses, providing a one-stop shop online, a roadmap. Anyway, I'm here for you. My opponent is not. She's gallivanting around. And one last word. I was campaigning down south. They called her Cardboard Carol because they never see her.
Mr. Wes Holden, independent for U.S. House of Representatives. And we're going to move to state races here in just a moment. We want to remind our listeners listening on the radio out there that you're listening to WJLS Beckley, West Virginia, and WWNR Beckley, West Virginia. This is Meet the Candidates, presented by the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. Well, in our state races, the first candidates we'll hear from today on the state ticket are our gubernatorial candidates. Each candidate, again, will be given 4 questions and allowed a 1-minute wrap-up statement. So we want to invite the gubernatorial candidates to the podium. Mr. Steve Williams, the Democratic candidate for governor. Okay, and also please welcome Erica Kolenich, who's a Libertarian running for the governor of West Virginia. Let's give him a round of applause.
Not taller than the podium.
And it's good to have you all with us. Mr. Morrissey, I guess, could not be with us here this morning. We do want to begin with our questioning, and the first question, I believe, will begin with you, Mr. Williams. The first question will be from Micah Leath of WOAY-TV. Micah?
Mr. Williams, we're deep in the middle of a special session, and all people are talking about right now is the tax cut. The governor wanted 5%. It's looking more like 2%. Do you think it's responsible for the state to continue to cut the income tax, and would you look to do that as governor?
In the 12 years that I've been mayor of Huntington, we found ways to be able to cut taxes. But the key to it is being strategic in such a way that when you're cutting taxes, you're not decapitating other programs throughout the city. In this purpose throughout the state government. I've heard that one of our opponents is saying, well, right-size government. This creates a real concern for me because we have to take care of child care. We have to make sure that we're properly funding education. We have to make sure that we're able to build the proper infrastructure. When we reduce business taxes on manufacturing, eliminated the business taxes on retail, cut it in half on service businesses. What we ended up finding is that we had a net $13 million increase of our revenues. It's smart if you do it smart, but I'm fearful that they're so busy wanting to make sure that they're cutting taxes that they're also looking at eliminating significant parts of state government.
Another question now from Rivers Upchurch for Mr. Williams. Rivers?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Recently, we've seen a trend of companies relocating to West Virginia. However, for whatever reason, they don't seem to be choosing a lot of locations here in the southern part of the state. If elected, how would you make sure that the southern part of the state, in particular Beckley, which is the biggest city in the southern part of the state, are not left behind in this progress that West Virginia is making?
First and foremost, my heart is in southern West Virginia. I grew up in Athens. My dad was a coach at Concord. My family is in Mercer County and McDowell County. Grew up watching Bluefield and Beckley playing in football, and eventually, when I moved to Huntington, played against Beckley. All that being said, is that we absolutely have to make sure that there's adequate water. We have broadband throughout the state. We have the ability to be able to create jobs, digital jobs, because you can have the opportunity to be able to come in on the tops of a lot of the coal mines that are now not active. We have the ability to be able to come in and be able to mine rare earth minerals in the area. We have the capacity here. We have the people to be able to do this. My concern is we've got to make blessed sure that when we bring businesses in, that they stay here, because we're buying a lot of businesses, but then when they don't deliver on what they're doing, we need to make daggone sure that we're getting the money back that we have given away for them to come in.
Our next question from Ben Schwartz at WVVA is for Erica Kolenich, who's the Libertarian running for governor. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you believe that the state government should be doing more or less to, in terms of oversight of homeschooled children, to prevent possible abuse and make sure that those students are getting a proper education?
Sure. Thank you for that question. You know, I think that often one incident happens in the homeschooling community, and all of a sudden we look and we say homeschooling is a problem when really it's not. If we're talking about, you know, the incident that happened recently that made state news, the state government had an opportunity to save that child via the state police and CPS, and, you know, with all due respect, failed that child. So giving the government more oversight over homeschool to give them a third chance to save that child seems a little bit disingenuous to me, because all we're doing is punishing all the other homeschooling families who are doing it right throughout the state of West Virginia by unjustly placing blame on the homeschool community. So I don't think that the homeschool community needs more oversight by the government. I'm an advocate for school choice. That doesn't mean that I think we need to leave our public schools behind. I think public schools are great. I sent my kid to public school. I just think it means that, you know, homeschooling is homeschooling. Parents in West Virginia and everywhere have a right, if they want to homeschool their child, to do so without the interference of the government.
Okay, we have another question here from Lola Reiser. That would be directed to Steve Williams. Lola?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
There's been conversation about broadband and businesses coming to southern West Virginia. And it seems, this is a two-part question, that the recurring statement challenge is having a trained workforce, but then also grant funds that are available come with matching requirements that some communities are unable to meet, so therefore they're unable to process those funds. What is your thoughts on that?
I think we have a great opportunity with our community colleges and certainly the trade schools that we have within the public school system. Absolutely, we have to have broadband, and absolutely we have to have the ability to be able to train these individuals. The key that I see is by, particularly through the community colleges, that we have the opportunity to be able to encourage individuals to come through on training on learning how to code and various other things as it relates to the digital age. As I see it, we have the opportunity, particularly with the community colleges, to have free enrollment for individuals to be able to come into that. Now, when it comes to matching grants locally, if they don't have the capacity to be able to do that themselves, the state needs to step in and make sure that if the local government doesn't have the capacity to be able to do that, the state government must step in.
Thank you.
Cameron Gano, another question for Erica Kolenich.
Good morning. You're running as a libertarian candidate, and some voters, the idea of a libertarian West Virginia governor may feel a little foreign. What might you say to those voters, and what does a West Virginia governor libertarian administration look like?
Sure. I know some people feel like running as a libertarian or voting for a libertarian is a little bit crazy. And what I tell them is this. In West Virginia, we have suffered for as long as any of us can remember about being at the bottom every time a good state rankings list comes up, or being at the top every time a bad state rankings list come up. And for those of you who followed politics, you know that the Democrats were in charge for a very long time. And now the Republican supermajority is in charge, and it doesn't feel like we're making much progress in those state rankings lists. So although voting for a libertarian seems bold, I think we have to start doing bold and different things if we want to make progress. And what a libertarian administration means is that we can all have different ideas. We're all different people. We all have different values. And that means the government of the state of West Virginia shouldn't have any values at all. The government of the state of West Virginia and what that administration looks like should just be to protect your right to live your life the way you want to raise your family the way you want to, and to make your own decisions the way you want to, as long as you're not hurting other people and as long as you're not taking their stuff.
Keith Thompson from WJLS. One more question for Erica Kolenich, please.
Good morning, ma'am. This special session is in progress right now, and the governor earlier issued 4 different items that he wanted to come up in this, and one of these is the creation of the line item for charter school funding for the School Building Authority in West Virginia. What's your thoughts on that?
So I'm an advocate, as I said, for school choice, which means I'm an advocate for charter schools. As long as charter schools are in place the way they are under the state code, I think that they should have the same rights to public school funding as public schools should in terms of building their buildings and having buildings to educate children in, because it's the same tax dollars following the children. It's the same tax dollars coming out of the community to educate the kids, whether or not it's happening in public schools or whether or not it's happening in charter schools. It's still the state government providing an education for those children in some way, so I would support that.
Next up, Micah Leah from WOAY. A final question for Mr. Williams.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Mr. Elliott. You are running as a Democrat in a predominantly Republican state. If you're elected, how will you work across the aisle to get things done with a lot of these local officials who are predominantly Republican?
I have been, was first elected to the House of Delegates in 1986. It's part of a supermajority. It's part of a business-oriented Democratic caucus that was there. The one thing that we consistently did is that we would reach over to the Republican side, and then we would come together as a bloc to be able to get things done. I learned by being on the back row how to be able to get things done through the legislature. In the time that I've been mayor, I've worked with Democratic governors, Republican governors, and I've worked with Democratic presidents and Republican presidents. The one thing that has been consistent is that I've been able to get things done regardless of whether somebody has a D, an R, or an I after their name. The key is I have 2 letters after my name, and this is one thing that everybody should make sure that this is the priority, WV. I am a West Virginian. I was born here. I was educated here. I built my career here, met my wife here. My parents were buried here, and I will be buried here. West Virginians will lead the way.
And Rivers Up Church, a final question for Erica Kolenich.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll ask one. Okay. Child care often straddles the line between being treated as a social service or as a business. What is your stance on how child care should be classified, and how would this influence your approach to policy and funding decisions?
I'm so glad you asked. I actually just came out with an entire policy on how to solve the child care crisis in West Virginia. It's on my website if anybody wants to check it out. And I think the answer is making it easier for nonprofits to help in West Virginia. One of the things that people don't realize is we make it as hard as possible for nonprofits and individuals and communities to help solve problems in West Virginia as we can. If you look to what's happening in North Carolina, people are getting arrested, right, when they're trying to go in and provide rescue efforts. And I think child care is no different. So I think we need to institute child care gardens, which are nonprofits that are exempt from the normal regulatory framework that normal child care facilities would be exempt from, which would allow in our communities that have waiting lists for infants, people that can't afford child care, for a facility that they could take their children to that can offer lower cost services because they don't have to do things like make sure that, you know, there's a GFI outlet every so many feet, and parents would be able to go into those facilities and decide for themselves, is this facility safe for my child? Is it not? If it wasn't, they wouldn't have to send their child there, but it would be another option to them that would be a low-cost option, because I think that that is needed in West Virginia.
Mr. Williams, a 1-minute closing statement.
Glenn Elliott mentioned earlier that I am often saying if you want to know what somebody is going to do, look at what they've done. In Huntington, I became mayor. Huntington was the most obese, most unhealthy, most addicted city in the nation. And what we immediately set forward to do was not just to take on those issues, but also the issue of making sure that we would be setting standards that the rest of the nation would seek to follow. I love this future forward. Everything that we have done in Huntington since I became mayor was to make sure that we were in a position to set a standard for not the next 4 years, not the next 8 years or 12 years, for the next 50 years, the future moving forward, assuring that whatever we are doing is that we're setting standards, once again, that the rest of the nation is seeking to follow. The whole point is that we have to develop a swagger in West Virginia. And rather than being apologetic about being from West Virginia, that we are broadening our shoulders, holding our head high, straightening our back, and saying we are from West Virginia. And then as a result, people will start asking, who would have imagined that such innovation would come out of that state? And people will be saying, we did.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And Ms. Kolenich, a 1-minute closing statement.
I'm running for governor because I care about West Virginia. And I care about all of you. Regardless of whether or not we agree on every topic, I care about you. And I'm scared. I'm scared that West Virginia is the type of place that my daughter and that your children feel like they have to leave to be successful. I'm scared about the political polarization changing the place that we've always known as our home. We've always had the reputation of a place that people could come from out of state and they felt at home. They say, oh my gosh, I stayed at the hotel and people were so friendly and so helpful. I broke down last night and I had 10 people stop and offer to help me change my tire or help me call somebody before I could even call somebody. And the political polarization that we have coming in from the two parties stand to change us. I've seen that, and I've seen that fighting, and I want to change that. I want us to get back to that West Virginia DNA that makes us all more similar than it makes us different. That thing that regardless of whether or not you're in Ireland or Mexico or Texas, when you hear Country Roads come on, you start singing it to yourself and you look across the restaurant, and if you see someone else singing it, you know that that person is your friend and you inherently trust them. And I want to do that just by letting you be the person that you want to be and not letting the state of West Virginia government stand in your way.
Thank you, Ms. Kolenich. And Mr. Williams, running for governor of the state of West Virginia. Let's give him a round of applause.